Podestà is the name given to certain high officials in many Italian cities beginning in the later Middle Ages. Mainly it meant the chief magistrate of a city-state, the counterpart to similar positions in other cities that went by other names, e.g.rettori, but it could also mean the local administrator, who was the representative of the Holy Roman Emperor. Currently, Podestà is the title of mayors in Italian-speaking municipalities of Graubünden in Switzerland. The term derives from the Latin word potestas, meaning power, like the Arabic term sultan, originally meaning power or authority. It eventually became the title of the person holding power. Italian history. The first documented usage of Podestà was in Bologna in 1151, when it was applied to Guido di Ranieri di Sasso of Canosso, brought in from Faenza to be rettori. Podestà, noted in numerous documents. Leander Albertus gives the particulars. The citizens, seeing that there often arose among them quarrels and altercations, whether from favoritism or friendship, from envy or hatred that one had against another, by which the Republic suffered great harm, loss and detriment. Therefore, they decided, after much deliberation, to provide against these disorders, and thus they began to create a man of foreign birth the chief magistrate, giving him every power, authority and jurisdiction over the city, as well over criminal as over civil causes, and in times of war as well as in times of peace, calling him praetor as being above the others, or Podestà, as having every authority and power over the city. Podestas were first more widely appointed by the Holy Roman Emperor Frederick Barbarossa when he began to assert the rights that his imperial position gave him over the cities of northern Italy at the Second Imperial Diet at Roncaglia, November 1158. Frederick appointed in several major cities imperial podestas, as if having imperial power in that place. The elected consuls, which Frederick had claimed the right to ratify, he began to designate directly. The business of the Podestà was to enforce imperial rights. From the start, this was very unpopular, and their often arbitrary behavior was a factor in bringing about the formation of the Lombard League and the uprising against Frederick in 1167. Although the emperor's experiment was short-lived, the Podestas soon became important and common in northern Italy, making their appearance in most communes around the year 1200. With an essential difference. These officials were now appointed by the citizens or by the citizens' representatives, rather like the older consuls. The podestas exercised the supreme power in the city, both in peace and war, and in foreign and domestic matters alike, but the term of office lasted only about a year. In order to avoid the intense strife so common in Italian civic life, it soon became the custom to hire a stranger to fill this position. A similarity could be drawn to modern CEOs. Venetians were in special demand for this purpose during the 12th and 13th centuries. This was probably due to the lesser concern than other Italians in the affairs of the mainland. Afterwards, in a few cases, the term of office was extended to cover a period of years, or even a lifetime. They were confined in a luxury palace to keep them from being influenced by any of the local families. The architectural arrangement of the Palazzo Pubblico at Siena, built starting in 1297, evokes the uneasy relation of the commune with the Podestà, who in Siena's case was a disinterested nobleman at the head of the judiciary. It provided a self-contained lodging round its own interior court for the Podestà, separate but housed within the Palazzo Pubblico, where the councillors and their committee of 9 habitually met. During the later part of the 12th and the whole of the 13th century, most Italian cities were governed by a Podestà. Concerning Rome, with a history of civic violence, Gregorovius says that, in 1205 the Pope Innocent III changed the form of the civic government, the executive power lying henceforward in the hand of a single senator Epodus, who, directly or indirectly, was appointed by the Pope. In Florence after 1180, the chief authority was transferred from the consuls to the Podestà, and Milan and other cities were also ruled by these officials. There were, moreover, podestas in some of the cities of Provence. An anonymous writer composed a short guide for the would-be podesta Oculus Pastoralis, of about 1222. In 6 simple and brief chapters it guides the novice through the requirements of the office, the salary, the address of welcome given by the retiring podesta to the new one, the choice of councillors, the handling of money accounts. The 5th chapter offers some model speeches on public occasions, such as the death of prominent citizens. A final chapter touches upon making war, and the training of urban officials. In the 13th century in Florence, in Orvieto and some other cities a Capitano del Popolo was chosen to look after the interests of the lower classes. In other ways the power of the podestas was reduced. They were confined more and more to judicial functions until they disappeared early in the 16th century. The officials sent by the Italian republics to administer the affairs of dependent cities were also sometimes called podestas. Into the 20th century the cities of Trento and Trieste gave the name of podest to the chief magistrate. The example of Italy in the matter of podestas was sometimes followed by cities and republics in northern Europe in the Middle Ages, notably by such as had trade relations with Italy. The officers elected sometimes bore the title of podesta or podestat. Thus in East Frisia there were podestas identical in name and functions with those of the Italian republics. Sometimes each province had one. Sometimes the federal diet elected a podest general for the whole country, the term of office being for a limited period if for life. Fascist era. The fascist regime created its own version of the podesta figure. In February 1926, Mussolini's Senate issued a decree which suspended elected local government, replacing it with an authoritarian figure appointed by the National Fascist Party, designated podesta. Consequently, for the 21st of April 1927 until 1945 all democratic local government of communes by town councils and the mayors was suspended and transferred to the podesta, who was nominated by royal charter for a renewable 5-year term. In larger communes the podesta was supported by 1 or 2 vice podesta nominated by the Ministry of Interior, in addition to a board of advisors nominated either by the local prefect or, in the major cities, by the Ministry of Interior. The entire system was abandoned with the return to democracy after the war. Podesteria. Literally this derived word means the office of a podesta or its term, but podesteria can also designate a district administered by a podesta within a larger state. In the Domini di Terraferma that the Dogal Republic of Venice gradually established in the basin of the River Po, annexing various former principalities and self-governing cities, mostly in the 15th century. Podesterias were one of the intermediate levels of the hierarchical administrative organization, the highest level being the territorio. After the other Dogal Republic, Genoa was in 1273 granted control of Pera and Galata, commercial suburbs of Constantinople, by the Byzantine Emperor. It governed them jointly by common podesta until 1453, when all Constantinople was conquered by the Ottoman Turks. Frisian potestat. The concept of a local man empowered to represent the emperor was also a feature of medieval Frisia. From apocryphal beginnings, important rights were granted or confirmed under the code of law known as the Lex Frisianum. According to later tradition, it was Charlemagne who granted the Frisians the title of freemen and permitted them to choose their own podestat or imperial governor from among the chieftains, to organize and lead the defense of 2 of the 3 districts of Frisia in Middle Frisia. for the flight to the Lauras and in East Frisia from the Lauras to the Weser, later the Countship of Ostfriesland. The Frisians probably became aware of the Italian title of Podestà during the Sixth Crusade in 1228. According to privileges that were falsely ascribed to the Carolingian era, the potestate was chosen by council and he must be able to slay knights. Apocryphal historical writings mention the potestate as early as the Viking Age. The only potestates chosen to lead Friesland between the VLA and Lauras were Juw Dewinga and Juw Decamer. Both were chosen by the Schieringers. However, in 1399 the districts of Westergo and Oostergo elected potestates, Hering Haringsma and Gerdwaarde respectively. In this struggle against the Count of Holland, the title became well known outside of Friesland only with the installation of Albrecht of Saxony as hereditary potestate in 1498. The Frisians chose Janko du Arme as their imperial stadtholder. In local Dalmatian dialect, the linguistic and cultural legacy of the Republic of Venice is expressed through the term potestat, instead of the standard Croatian gradonačelnik, when referring to a mayor. Reading: Brouwer, J.H.J.J. Klamer, W. Koch, and M. Wiegersma eds. Encyclopedia van Friesland. S.V. Potestat van Friesland. Encyclopedia Britannica 1911. Frisians. Janet Hongyin Wu. Tension in Siena. Site selection and room arrangement of Piazza Pubblico. Burckhardt, Jacob. The Civilization of the Renaissance in Italy. The State as a Work of Art. Trans. 1878. AMHJ. Stokevis. Manuel d'Histoire de Gene Allégie de Chronologie de tous les états du globe depuis les temps les plus reculés jusqu'à nos jours. Volume E. Westermann. Grosse Atlas sur Weltgeschichte. World Statesman, Turkey. William Francis Thomas Butler, Lombard Communes. A History of the Republics of North Italy.